Is a part of me right now. I'm Jewish, and according to Jewish law and tradition, life begins with the first breath.
Yeah, don't try to use religion to justify why you're an irresponsible adult.
All right, let's see it.
You're referring to Genesis 2:7 when you're saying that life begins at the first breath.
No, she's absolutely not. She referred explicitly to Jewish law and tradition, which is a reference to the halakha, which is based on the Talmud, and the last 2,000 years of tradition. And one of the additional indications that she's referring to the halakha is that she starts out the clip by saying, this is a part of me right now. And if you go look up the rest of the interview, she says, it's like a limb. And this is a reference to the Talmud, where the rabbis determined that between 40 days of gestation and birth, a fetus is a part of the woman's thigh, like a limb. Prior to 40 days of gestation, it's just considered water. And for this reason, within Jewish halakha, Jewish law, abortion is permissible. And there are even times when it is considered a religious obligation. For instance, if the fetus becomes a rodef. Rodef is a Hebrew word meaning pursuer, and there was a principle that if you knew there was a pursuer seeking to take someone else's life, you were obligated under Jewish law to do whatever was necessary to stop that pursuer, up to and including taking the pursuer's own life. And so we see in the halakha the determination that a fetus that threatens the life or safety of its mother becomes a rodef, at which point abortion is not only permissible but considered a religious obligation. And we have other parts of the Hebrew Bible that make clear that a fetus was not considered a full legal and moral person until birth. But we see in Exodus 21 verses 22 and 23 a couple of punishments that are imposed for two different outcomes should two men who are fighting accidentally injure a pregnant woman. The first outcome is if the injury causes a miscarriage, and the punishment is that the husband assesses a fine. And the second outcome is if the injury causes the death of the pregnant woman, at which point it becomes the death penalty, life for life. And this has been interpreted by virtually all Jewish interpreters to mean that a fetus was not considered a full moral and legal person. It was more like property, and specifically the property of the husband. Now there's one interpretation from ancient Judaism that differs. The ancient Greek translation of this passage, the Septuagint, misunderstood the Hebrew word for calamity, tragedy, ason, which refers in this instance to death, as soma, as relating to the body. And so they actually translate it to mean if the fetus is not fully formed, there's a fine. If the fetus is fully formed, it becomes the death penalty. Now that's not how the rabbinic sages interpret this passage. That is a single interpretation from ancient Hellenistic Judaism. But even there, the idea is that the fetus does not become a human life, or at least does not take on legal personhood until it is fully formed, which would not take root within the Jewish tradition, but was something that was later abandoned. It was picked up by Christianity, however, and for the overwhelming majority of the history of Christianity, a fetus was not considered a full moral and legal person until what was known as the quickening, which was associated with the feeling of independent movement on the part of the fetus, which was associated with its full development. So you don't have the first clue what you're talking about.
But this is in reference to God forming Adam from the dust of the ground and breathing into his nostrils the breath of life. Hence, this does not apply to the baby that's in your stomach.
Actually, it does, since this is just one reflection of the consistent association of breath with life throughout the Hebrew Bible. And many Jewish commentators don't consider Genesis 2:7 to be the first indication of this. They consider Genesis 1 to be the first indication of this, where the Ruach Elohim, the spirit, the breath of God, is hovering over the waters. This is thought to represent the cosmic womb. And throughout the Hebrew Bible, we see a close connection between breath and life. In fact, when the flood comes, it is said to destroy every living thing that had the breath of life in its nostrils. And when we look at the three words in Hebrew throughout the Hebrew Bible that are used to refer to life and that are translated into English as life, the most basic one is chaim, which just means life. But the other two are ruach and nefesh. And ruach means spirit or breath. Nefesh means soul or neck or breath. So throughout the Hebrew Bible, throughout Jewish halakha and Jewish tradition, breath and life have been intimately associated, which is why Jewish law and tradition has always considered human life to begin at the first breath.
Are you forming that baby from the dust of the ground and breathing life into that baby's nostrils? Didn't think so. Stop trying to use this as an excuse and take accountability over the fact that you spread your legs.
Hey, maybe you should go get better educated about your Bible, and maybe you should also stop trying so pathetically to speak down to Jewish women about their Judaism. And maybe you should also not try to slut-shame women just because it slakes your own naive and juvenile right-wing authoritarian identity politics, because you're not good at it.